Right, and I think part of this is, from a Denver perspective, he was paid so much money that unless he had unbelievable numbers and Denver was going to Super Bowls or on the verge of going to Super Bowls, it was going to be a bust, and it ended up being a bust.
All right, 412-575-2600 is the number. Let's hear what people have to say, beginning with Jen in Evansburg. Hey, Jen, what's going on?
Yes, I wanted to talk about Mason Rudolph.
Okay.
And I'm glad he went someplace else, because he was never, ever respected by Roethlisberger or Tomlin. The first 2 years ago, when he was, they were trying to say who was going to start, and they said on a Monday, it's Trubisky. And it was going to be the second was Mason Rudolph. Well, then on Tuesday, when Tomlin had his conference, he said, oh, no, it's Pickett. There was a glitch in the system. A glitch.
No, I know what you're talking about, Jen. And listen, do I agree he waited too long to get him into a game, maybe even this year or before Trubisky? They made a decision to go Trubisky. They gave him money. They were not going to let that, which is why I was a little surprised they brought in Wilson here, because they've made a commitment to Kenny Pickett being a #1 pick. And yet I just think this was a situation that came out of nowhere at a very cheap price, and it was a bargain they couldn't turn their back on. Pure and simple, Jeff, and it's for 1 year. And if Kenny Pickett, comes in and performs and does well, they'll move on with him in the next year and see what happens. But I don't think he has any other choice but to try to come in there, work hard, and see if he can beat him out.
I mean, they don't have to say it. They showed it with their actions. They feel like they could win a Super Bowl this year. That's why you bring in Russell Wilson. Forget the price, because the thing that this franchise needs to do is establish who the next quarterback is going to be. They're going to kick that can down the road another year because they feel like they can win a Super Bowl right now. That missing piece is a veteran quarterback who still has some miles left on the tires, and they can add a couple other pieces, and they feel like, look what we did last year. We got into the playoffs with a team that had inconsistent quarterback play, and now we've got a new coordinator on top of it. I don't – listen, they're going to have to make a decision on Kenny Pickett, most likely with him never playing a game in his third year, on whether or not they pick up his fifth-year option. It's okay to push that down the road, but obviously the Steelers believe that they can win and win it all this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough go. If he doesn't play it all this year, how can they pick up the fifth-year option? It'll be a huge amount of money. I think for Mac Jones next year will be $25.6 million. It'll be higher than that. That's the thing. Again, they have him here. They're going to try to do it. They have some big-time players on defense. They need more on offense. We'll see how the rest of this goes. And make no mistake, there's a lot more before this roster becomes complete. So before you make any conclusions, let's see how it goes out there. If you're wondering about it and going to call us on it, like I know some people have tweeted. Back to the lines, we got Jim in Cranberry, top of the board. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, let me ask you this. Kenny Pickett, he was completely overdrafted in the first round. He's played terrible. He's had some good fourth-quarter comebacks, but Russell Wilson is such an upgrade over this guy, and I think you got to trade him. I think you got to get rid of this guy.
For whom?
He doesn't want to be. Hold on. Hold on. In his senior year, he didn't play in the Senior Bowl. He didn't play in the bowl game.
That's past history. That has no, you're going to trade him, then what? What do you have left here? You're going to start drafting guys in the fifth round?
Yeah.
No, they're not going to trade him. He may not be happy. I don't know if he is or isn't, Jeff, but they're not going to trade him now.
Well, I'm sure he's not happy. I mean, he wanted to start the playoff game. He wasn't happy. He made that well known. I'm sure he's not happy they brought in someone that's going to take the job from him this year. But what are the Steelers' options? They've got a cheap backup right now in Kenny Pickett. And if, Wilson goes down, Pickett gets another opportunity to prove himself. But what are you going to get for him? Like, why would the Steelers trade him? Because his trade value would be anything. I mean, if you can't trade Justin Fields and get anything for him, what are you going to get for Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, that might be the only thing that's interesting. How about Fields for Pickett if both are unhappy? And I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I am curious about Justin Fields. It's taken a long time. What I think they're doing, however, is trying to come to whatever conclusion in Chicago they want to make for who is their quarterback. They're going to go through, and there's still pro days to go to. There's a lot more that these teams are looking to evaluate. And before they make that conclusion, they're going to keep him available just in case. And I think that's really the holdup here. I think eventually he will be traded. Anyway, let's go out to Jim in Green Tree. Jim, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Hey, Bob, Pitt's getting 1.5 tomorrow. I like Pitt getting 1.5. And the Penguins are done. And that trade with the Steelers getting Wilson here, I think that's bad. Bye.
It wasn't a trade. It was just a signing. As far as Pitt, I think it's going to be a good game. Wake is a good team. But if they should win that, it helps them a lot. Then they would most likely get North Carolina. As far as the Penguins, boy, Jeff, again, last night another missed opportunity. They go to a team that had lost 7 in a row, and they were, I thought, thoroughly outplayed at times in that game. And Tristan Jarry kept them in the game. 2 goals in 4 games. They've given up 17, and yet all the teams above them have gone nowhere. The deficit remains the same as it was 3 weeks ago, despite all this losing.
Yeah, but in order for the Penguins to make a move, they'd have to go on a winning streak. I don't know that this team is capable of going on a winning streak. I mean, it just seems like the air is out of their sails. I mean, I feel for Sid. I mean, they're not getting production from Malkin. They've got, I mean, how many guys on that roster right now would be on a typical playoff roster? Not many.
No.
I mean, only a few. And I think that's part of the problem they have now is just that they just don't have the type of players they're not good enough. And it doesn't mean, and here's the other thing, Bob. People will say, oh, they don't try. I actually believe they try, and that's the bad thing. They try, they're just not good enough to beat the teams in their own division, let alone in the conference or in the entire league.
And when the obituary is written for this season, eventually I'm going to look back at 2 things. Number 1, their power play, first and foremost. And number 2, how they play in overtime. They lost so many games in overtime, and this is a team that should win more than they lose in overtime. Back to the line, Sam in New Bethlehem. Welcome to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, it was reported that last year there were 60 starting quarterbacks throughout the season. So even if Kenny Pickett isn't the starter, there's a good chance that he'll probably get a chance to start during the season. But what I wanted to talk about was I saw the Mark Schlereth interview with Colin Cowherd today. And as you mentioned, he had mixed reviews about Russell Wilson. But he also said he thought the Steelers was the best team for Wilson because of Arthur Smith. He thinks that that's a good match. But he also said he has the Steelers as the 4th best team in their division. I'll hang up and listen to your response.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very crowded division all because of quarterback play. But I think the Steelers with Wilson and Arthur Smith, I'm anxious to see how this works, Jeff. But it's a tough division no matter what.
Yeah, I think the Steelers have gotten better, and at quarterback, they've really gotten into where at least they can have conversations with some of the other teams. But yeah, I mean, the toughest part for the Steelers, take the AFC out of it, just getting out of their own division is going to be tough because Cleveland's done nothing to hurt themselves. The Bengals get Burrow back, and I know they lost a couple of free agents. I know that the Ravens lost Patrick Queen, obviously, to the Steelers, but they're still going to be a good team. And, oh, by the way, there's all those other teams in the AFC that are very good. That's maybe the biggest problem for the Steelers. It's not that they're not that good. It's just there's so many good teams in the AFC right now.
And Kansas City is still Kansas City. And by the way, Derrick Henry, thinking about him down in Baltimore, man, that's going to be a tough assignment. You got to face him twice a year. Robert Spillane, are you available to come back? Let's go. We got to take a break. We'll come back with more. 412-575-2600. We're right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Meanwhile, let's go out to Brad in Brookline on line 1. Hello, Brad.
Hey, guys. I do like what the Steelers have done so far. But, Jeff, to mention Super Bowl is a little bit much since you haven't won a playoff game in 2016.
And listen, I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm telling you what they believe. And they say it every year, and they believe it to their core, that every year that they can win a Super Bowl. And that's why you make those moves, because they believe that.
Yeah, and if you get the kind of quarterback play that you really want and need, I think that makes everybody better, not just your offense and skill people. And they need work there. They got to come up with a center, maybe a tackle, and more receivers. However, the defense gets a little bit of a breather too. So instead of playing tight games all the time, all of a sudden you can let them go after people a little bit more because you're scoring more points. So I think it starts there, and we'll see how it goes. Jeff, thanks as always. Pitt and Wake Forest tomorrow, 2:30.